Hi, folks. Dennis Fatoja, a.k.a. defnoodles here. And today we're talking about one of the internet's latest Democrat mascots for moral decay, Jennifer Welch. See, every so often, Democrats cough up one of these failed Hollywood extras who rebrands as a political prophet and starts spewing bile under the banner of progress. Welch is the newest face of that sickness, a woman so desperate for relevance, she's practically auditioning for The View, Asylum Edition. And what she represents is bigger than her own meltdown. She's a reflection of a party that's completely lost its soul. The Democrat Party isn't the party of compassion anymore. It's the party of destruction. It's the party that burns cities and calls it justice, that doxes opponents and calls it accountability, that cheers mobs and calls it democracy. These people have traded principles for pitchforks. They don't just want to win arguments. They want to erase anyone who disagrees with them from existence. So today, we're going to dig into who Jennifer Welch really is, why she suddenly popped up out of nowhere, and what her rise says about the increasingly violent, vindictive nature of the modern Democrat movement.
I'm a white woman that has lived in a red state my entire life.
God,
and I can tell you, when I'm around white people, they test the racist water. They test it on people like you all.
Oh my God, stop!
And they'll try to say off-color things. I put my hand up. It absolutely happens, and you're fortunate that maybe you haven't experienced this.
Can I just say, literally this August, a white person said the N-word in front of me.
And the vice president.
By the way, that black woman at the end is a former Joe Biden consultant, and Joe Biden, of course, is the same man who literally said the N-word on the Senate floor while quoting it in the 1980s. Yes, folks, that actually happened. So I can't help but wonder if the person she's talking about who said the N-word in front of her might have actually been Joe Biden. Because let's be honest, if history's any guide, the odds are overwhelming that the person she heard it from was a Democrat. After all, Democrats founded the KKK, defended Jim Crow, filibustered the Civil Rights Act, and celebrated Robert Byrd, a literal grand Kleagle of the Klan. Up until the day he died in office in 2010, at which point he was eulogized by both Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, just to remind everyone that the party of equity still clings proudly to its roots of Dixiecratism. So when this woman talks about experiencing racism, she's probably right, but she's experiencing it inside her own party. And while we're at it, did anybody catch the subtle racism from Jennifer Welch herself when she says "you all" in the most condescending tone ever? That's othering, isn't it? Isn't that the same coded language Democrats claim to hear in every Republican sneeze? This is how Democrats play it, folks. They invent racism where it doesn't exist while practicing it in the open. Democrats are the party of racism, and worse, they're addicted to it. They need racism the way a junkie needs a fix because their whole power structure depends on making white, liberal women feel guilty enough to keep voting blue. That's why they platform people like Jennifer Welch, to let those voters purge their sins through performative outrage. They call it progress, but it's really just recycling hate with better branding.
We haven't felt the same since Obama. And something broke in white people that had some racism. Some white people had some racism stewing in them in communities that I grew up in a totally red state. And something broke in them when there was a competent, wonderful black president, maybe they disagreed with, that was eating off the china, sleeping in the bed at the White House. And I remember in Oklahoma City when Obama came, he was greeted with Confederate flags in Oklahoma City. So all of this was there. And you remember that John McCain debate where John tried to tone that woman down. It was all there. None of this surprises me. As a person that lived in a red state, I always looked for the federal government to temper all of this. And to Miles's point, now that this is mainstream, it's just devastating.
Well, let's have the Barack Obama conversation, because I am sick of Democrats polishing his legacy like it's the Ark of the Covenant. You can't keep making this up, dude. The only real accomplishment Obama ever had was his identity, and that's not an insult. That's just the uncomfortable truth. His presidency became a cultural absolution ritual for liberal white women in America. Voting for Obama wasn't about policy. It was about moral cleansing. It was about proving you are a racist. And this is exactly what people like Jennifer Welch are still clinging to when they say things like something broke in white people when a black man ate off the White House china. No, what broke wasn't white America. It was the illusion that electing a black president would cure the Democrats' own guilt and obsession with race. Now, I say this as someone who voted for Obama. I bought the message of hope and change and the promise of healthcare reform, the idea that he'd end the wars and restore sanity to politics when he first ran in 2009. Instead, we got one of the most deceptive and destructive presidencies in modern American history. The Affordable Care Act, sold as a step toward universal coverage, did the opposite for millions of working Americans. Before Obamacare, for example, anecdotally, my own healthcare insurance cost around $250 a month as a young college kid working hourly wages. After it passed, the same plan jumped up to $870. Multiply that by millions of middle and low income earners, and you understand why the ACA never achieved affordability. It just shifted the pain. Deductibles skyrocketed, premiums doubled, and insurers consolidated into near monopolies. In 2013 alone, average individual market premiums rose over 30%. That was in progress. It was punishment for the very people Democrats claim to be helping. And that's not even a half of it, folks. Obama's foreign policy was a masterclass in moral hypocrisy. The man who won a Nobel Peace Prize for doing absolutely nothing launched over 2,800 drone strikes, killing an estimated 300 to 800 civilians, according to the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, and that's a low estimate. He bypassed Congress for years, normalizing extrajudicial warfare from the sky. Then there's the $1.7 billion settlement with Iran, literally delivered in pallets of cash, money that helped empower the same regime funding terror groups across the Middle East and the world. Obama's legacy wasn't diplomacy. It was destabilization dressed as virtue. That's not even mentioning Benghazi, by the way. Anyway, culturally, his presidency also laid the groundwork for the identity politics cancer we're currently living through today. Remember his commentary on Trayvon Martin? He said, "If I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon." That line was a starting pistol for America's modern racial tribalism, a shift from shared citizenship to permanent grievance. It was under Obama that Black Lives Matter was born, and the Democrat establishment quickly realized racial division wasn't a problem to solve. It was a renewable energy source for their political power. The more America fought itself, the more they can consolidate control. So when Jennifer Welch says that people broke after Obama, what she's really describing is the backlash to a moral con job. People didn't break. They woke up. They saw through the illusion that the Democrat Party was building a post-racial America. What Obama actually did was rebrand racial tension as progress and guilt as some sort of patriotism. That's why Democrats today are obsessed with race, constantly performing virtue on camera while practicing bigotry in policy. The Democrats' cultural dominance largely depends on keeping Americans divided, suspicious, and self-loathing. So Obama didn't heal America. He just institutionalized its neurosis. And people like Jennifer Welch are a clear example of it.
I've had it with white people that triple trumped, that have the nerve and the audacity to walk into a Mexican restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, an Indian restaurant, go to perhaps their gay hairdresser. I don't think you should be able to enjoy anything but Cracker Barrel. And if you want to triple Trump and you want to browbeat DEI and you want to browbeat gay people and you want to browbeat black people as you've been doing for 400 years, and you want to browbeat this generation of immigrants that come over here and open up businesses earnestly, pay their taxes. You want to demonize them and call them rapists and felons and all this shit when the felon is the teeny weeny mushroom cock piece of shit, Cankles McTaco tits at the top of the ticket. I have fucking had it from top to bottom. White people that triple Trump should be banned, boycotted from enjoying the best thing that America has to offer, which is multiculturalism. Get your fat asses out of the Mexican restaurant. Get your fat asses over to Cracker Barrel, because nobody wants to see your fucking smug ass, teeny weeny, pink arm, big gut around. Nobody wants to see that shit. No one.
Wow. Is that what menopause sounds like? And by the way, I don't think I've ever said this before, but do plastic surgeons give refunds? Because if I were Jennifer Welch, I'd be calling him up right now and asking for one. Now, I know, folks, we're getting nasty, but look, since she's going to get so nasty, I figured I'd just join the party. Anyway, folks, yes, this is wild. This woman is seriously out here just saying that white Trump voters shouldn't be allowed to eat Mexican or Chinese food and should only be allowed to go to Cracker Barrel. So now we're gatekeeping tacos. We're gatekeeping lo mein. You're certainly enforcing restaurant segregation based purely on voting records. That is actually insane that you are so mad that people voted for Trump that you now believe they shouldn't be able to enjoy any food that didn't originate in a 1950s diner. Are you serious that you're all of a sudden just trying to enforce this imaginary border? Is that what this is about? You want to ban people from eating food that's seen as non-white to protect the sanctity of other cultures? Does Jennifer Welch even realize how deeply ironic it is to make that point while being a white lady? I can't make this up. And by the way, does she understand that there's a massive Hispanic contingency of men who voted for Trump? Does she realize that a huge percentage of Latinos, especially Mexican Latinos, still support Trump to this day? I literally know anchor babies in California who support deportations and want the border closed and secured. These are Mexican immigrants who came here, who love this country more than Jennifer, apparently. Because in her head, everyone who supports Trump is automatically a racist hillbilly who hates brown people, even if those brown people are the ones voting for Trump. She can't compute any of that. It breaks her circuits because she lives in a delusional little bubble where her politics define morality. That's why she's so angry. It's not about politics. It's purely moral vanity. Jennifer Welch doesn't realize she just perfectly exposed what the modern Democrat Party has become: bitter, intolerant, and obsessed with moral one-upmanship. These people claim to be the party of inclusion, but they literally want to ban you from enjoying Chinese takeout if you voted in a way they don't like. They scream about tolerance, but can't tolerate anyone who doesn't worship their poisonous ideology. It's all projection. They accuse Trump voters of being bigots while proudly discriminating against half the country 99% of the time. And that's what this clip shows, how far gone the Democrats are. They don't argue ideas anymore. They just rage, insult, and try to strip people of normal human experiences like eating at a restaurant, because their worldview can't survive outside of their echo chamber.
Stephen Miller is a white supremacist.
What?
I mean, he is. And he's basically
Jewish.
running the White House. They keep Trump busy with his decorating projects. He's got building the arch now. He's got his Oval Office design. And then you have these real sociopaths that are real anti-Semites, true white supremacists like Stephen Miller.
Are you on
And even though he's Jewish, he's like a Nazi Jew.
Well, look, I can't speak to what Stephen Miller's motivations are.
Wow.
I've met him. I've talked to him. I've interviewed him.
How tall is he? Yeah, we're dying to know.
God, I can't remember that.
Short?
I truly cannot remember him.
Okay.
I am short, so my understanding of people's height is not great.
This whole thing is just so performative. These women don't give a flying F-U-C-K about the country, about our politics, about who's actually in leadership. They just care about their bottom line. That's it. They don't want to see you eating better or your business thriving or your kids being born in a freer America. They want power. They want attention. They want money. And they will extract it from you any way they can, period. They will say or do anything to stay relevant in a system built on outrage clicks. I mean, just look at this exchange. Jennifer Welch calls Stephen Miller a Jewish man, a Nazi Jew. And this CNN host just sits there, nodding along, too afraid to challenge her because moral consistency no longer exists on the Democrat side. That's how far gone the conversation is. A white liberal can hurl one of the ugliest anti-Semitic slurs imaginable on live TV and no one blinks just because she's on the right team. These people have no convictions. It's all branding. It's not about truth or integrity. It's about feeding the machine that rewards emotional exhibition of a reason. And that's why liberal white women with microphones have become the number one most destructive force in American discourse. Not because they're powerful, but because they've learned that in today's media ecosystem, hysteria pays better than honesty. And oh wow, their BPD is now monetizable.
The delusions of this administration, the propaganda of this administration is falling flat. He has a 37% approval rating, and I believe it is going to plummet more by the end of the year. We have to stay focused. We have to stay brave. We have to loudly and proudly proclaim we are anti-fascist. We are pro-America. We are pro the Bill of Rights. And the people who hate America are the people that bend over for Vladimir Putin, Benjamin Netanyahu, and billionaires.
I seriously can't imagine who actually takes this woman seriously. But then again, the people who watch her are the same ones who thought Kamala Harris was a competent candidate. I can't even say that without laughing. So I guess low IQ voters relate to low IQ pundits. There's no other way to explain it. Jennifer Welch is completely out of her depth here. This is a woman I wouldn't trust catching tennis balls at a Little League match, let alone analyzing American politics. She says Trump's propaganda is falling flat while calling herself pro-America and anti-fascist. Yet everything about her worldview is built on projection. Her party spent 4 years labeling anyone who questioned the government as a fascist while cheering censorship, corporate collusion, and federal intimidation of political opponents, the textbook definition of fascism. And the pro-America claim she makes, well, please, come on, don't gaslight us. These are the same people who kneel for the flag, rewrite history, and call the Bill of Rights problematic. They don't get to pretend they're patriots now. And by the way, in case you're wondering, Welch isn't an outlier. She's a symptom of a culture that rewards loudness over literacy, emotion over evidence, and obedience over any sort of rational, objective thought. It's the byproduct of a political ecosystem where ignorance is just curated and broadcast as some sort of virtue, where being confidently wrong has become the entire Democrat personality.
He refuses to swear her in. And the reason, America, the reason, world, that he refuses to swear her in is because little Moses Mike Grinder Johnson worships two things: Donald Trump and his closeted life. And he will go to the ends of the earth to do anything for Kanks, for this dementia-ridden, diaper-wearing sack of shit. And he weaponizes his faith all day, every day, to rural Americans that have some sort of grudge. Why can't I get ahead? Why can't I get ahead? You can't get ahead because you vote for pieces of shit like Moses Mike Grinder Johnson, who kisses the ass of billionaires. And these billionaires think you are not worthy of livable wages. They think that you're not worthy of health care. And this is so sickening that the Speaker of the House, that no Republicans check this little pipsqueak, this little DL demon queen, and that he is such a defender and protector of pedophilia.
Folks, have you noticed how there hasn't been a single clip where Jennifer Welch actually says anything of substance? No facts, no policy, no argument, just nonstop ad hominems? And in this particular clip, she's shaming House Speaker Mike Johnson by implying he's secretly gay with zero evidence. Now, that's interesting on several levels, but mainly because it raises a few simple questions. One of them being, why are Democrats who constantly brand themselves as a party of empathy, compassion, and inclusion always the first to use gayness as an insult? Why is closeted suddenly the worst thing they can imagine? These are the same people who claim to be champions of the LGBTQIA plus NPC community. Yet every time they get angry at a Republican, the first words out of their mouth are homophobic slurs or insinuations. You ever ask yourselves that, folks? Why? What sort of shame or disgust do they secretly feel about gay people that they reflexively use sexuality as a weapon? This isn't new, by the way. It's a pattern. See, even anecdotally, when I was at the No Kings protest, the same kind of thing happened. Democrats didn't debate or challenge ideas. They didn't say, hey, I disagree with your policy, or hey, that argument doesn't hold up. No, they immediately resorted to calling us gay or trans as an insult. Why? Because for all their talk about tolerance, they only accept people when it's politically convenient for them. The minute identity stops serving their narrative, they turn it into a punchline. That's what this clip reveals about Democrats. It's not about empathy or equality. It's purely about power for them. They use identity as a weapon, not a value. And the moment it stops working for them, well, they throw it right back into the dirt.
One thing I want to say about Riley Gaines, as she sits there and has the moral high ground against AOC. When I look at people, if I were to say who's more Christ-like, I would pick AOC and the atheist Jew Bernie Sanders and the Muslim Zoran Mamdani a million times over you, Riley Gaines, because Riley Gaines, all you do is hate on people. You
what do you
are
do, lady?
Wound up like a cheap clock over trans people. You show them no grace, no compassion. You defend billionaires. You cheer and celebrate when children are zip tied, and then you have the audacity to get on television and try to lecture people who fight for the people that are suffering, that stand and put their arms around people that need sanctuary. And you try to act like you're better than they are. You're an insufferable twat.
Jesus.
Nobody likes you, and no matter what, you will always have been the dumb bitch that tied for 5th place, and the only place that you could get a job is at bottom feeder Fox News, you insufferable twat. Nobody likes you except for the other fake Christians that enjoy in their spare time watching children get zip tied and then sit there and justify it while they read the Bible with their hideous crucifixes around their necks. So fuck you, Riley Gaines.
Oh, so empathetic and accepting. Am I right, folks? Now, I'm honestly at a loss of words that anyone could listen to this woman and think she's just reasonable or loving. This is supposed to be the party of peace and love and equality. Am I right, folks? Do you see it too? The Democrats have completely gone off the rails. This isn't just nasty. It's absolutely deranged. Jennifer Welch spews more venom than a sewer pipe and somehow convinces herself she's doing it in the name of justice. I mean, how do you wake up every day and just pour out that much bile without having a stroke? It's like our soul's on a treadmill of hate. And let's be honest, if Jennifer were a snake, she wouldn't even be a king cobra. She'd be that sad ground-level garden snake scraping its belly across the dirt, full of venom, but too pitiful to actually scare anyone. And look, I'm only pointing out her appearance because she does that to everyone else. I mean, maybe tone down the Botox a little. Your eyebrows shouldn't look like they're trying to escape your forehead. It's genuinely hard to tell, honestly, when you look at her, if she's angry or just perpetually surprised. But all jokes aside, what kind of person calls a young woman a bitch for defending women's sports? What kind of feminist tears down a woman for protecting female athletes and their environment? The answer is someone who doesn't actually believe in feminism or anything that she actually claims she believes in. She's just dressing up hate as virtue. This isn't strength, it's just straight up bitterness. Welch's tirade doesn't just expose her. It exposes an entire culture on the Democrat side that confuses cruelty for courage, mockery for morality, and thinks screaming louder makes you somehow righteous. It's ugly, it's evil, and it's exactly why more Americans are walking away from this toxic ideology every day.
Finally, if you think this Zoran thing is happening just in New York, and you think people are waking up only in New York City, you're mistaken. Look at this clip of a wine mom at the No Kings March. Play the clip.
Whatever his name was?
Charlie Kirk, ma'am?
Yeah, him is horrible. Horrible.
Charlie Kirk is horrible?
Yes, I'm glad he's not here.
You're glad he's dead?
Yes.
Why would you say something like that, ma'am?
Because he was horrible on the campuses, the college campuses. Horrible person.
You know what? I do the exact same thing.
Well,
would you be glad if I would die?
Maybe. I'd have to think about it.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Be ashamed of yourself.
Your friend just said she'd be happy if I died.
I think we need to...
So listen up, Democratic establishment. You can either jump on board with this shit, or we're coming after you in the same way that we come after MAGA. Period. Stop taking AIPAC money. Go on an I'm sorry I took AIPAC money atonement tour if you want to stay in power. Stop missing out on these big rallies. Hakeem and Chuck should have been front and center introducing the next mayor of New York City, but no, they wouldn't show up because they're pussies. They're pussies that are beholden to the same corporations that that helped Donald Trump get elected. And this is just an embarrassment. Kudos to Bernie, to AOC, to Zoran. And that woman out in somewhere middle America saying, Florida. Fuck Charlie Kirk. He was a racist. He was a piece of shit. There are so many more of us than there are of them. No, and these Democrats that continue to play patty cake with corporations and lobbyists. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants you. We want politicians to speak freely and look at what the benefit is. Look at what is happening in New York. And you dipshits are sitting on the sidelines running your social media like complete dorks. It's embarrassing. Get your shit together. Hakeem and Chuck, seriously get your shit together because the Democratic Party is moving on. We are moving on.
If Democrats think that New York is a sign of where the rest of America is going, they're in for a rude awakening. New York is an edge case, folks, an extreme case. It's not representative of the rest of America. It's representative of what happens when Democrats are given absolute power with zero accountability. I remember living in New York during the 2016 election, working in media, and every single person around me was convinced Hillary Clinton was guaranteed to win. It was treated as a fact, not an opinion. I believed it too until I started driving outside the city through South Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania. And what did I see? Well, Trump signs everywhere. I'm talking walls of red across the map. And guess who won? Donald J. Trump. Because the people who live in places like New York live in an echo chamber so deep they've mistaken their own delusion for some sort of consensus. It's the same blindness that led them to elect Bill de Blasio, as if everyone forgot the years of chaos before Rudy Giuliani cleaned up the city and made it safe for business again, and then Bloomberg kept that prosperity going. But New Yorkers decided they needed a Democrat socialist who'd fix things by raising taxes, choking small businesses out of the city, and turning one of the world's greatest cities into a bureaucratic museum of decline. And now, unironically, people like Jennifer Welch think that model should define all of America. By the way, while celebrating Charlie Kirk's death and warning the Democrat establishment to get on board with that hatred or be next, as on activism, that's just straight up extremism. This is supposed to be the party of peace and tolerance, but every day it looks more like a cult of vengeance. Welch's rant doesn't reflect the will of the people. It reflects the decay of a movement so insulated, so angry, and so convinced of its own virtue that it's now openly advocating political violence while calling it justice. New York isn't America. It's never going to be America. It's going to be New York. And it's going to serve, unfortunately, as a warning label for the rest of America.
I mean, I always say to Pumps, I'm like, we cannot lose our democracy to these fucking dorks. I mean, Stephen Miller is the worst.
The worst.
Absolute fucking worst human being on the planet. And then you get to J.D. Vance, who is a failed drag queen. You know, he is. He is a failed drag queen. He wanted to be a drag queen. He couldn't do it. He wasn't fabulous enough. He goes off to Peter Thiel's gay boot camp in Silicon Valley, and he comes out like a sociopathic, queer-eyed freak show. You know, he'd be so much cooler if he'd just come out. And you know, I have this whole theory, Tommy, that in the MAGA movement, there's a group of DL demon queens. And I think that a lot of them are mad that they can't come out and feel pride. And so they browbeat everybody all day long. And then they get on Grindr at night, and then they go do gay stuff, and they wake up. But I think they think, like the Mike Johnson of it all, he's such a nut evangelical. I think he thinks, okay, I can't stop doing gay stuff, but if I make America Christian nationalists, then I'm going to curry favor with God. I grew up in a red state around all these evangelicals, and they think shit like this.
This woman is objectively out of her mind. Like, what the hell is she even talking about? She just strung together like 20 different completely false narratives, smeared half of Congress, and somehow thinks that qualifies as some sort of commentary. What even is the point of this? Is this supposed to be entertainment? Because if the point of Jennifer Welch's podcast is to just talk trash, at least commit to it. Go all in, dude. Don't hide behind middle school mean girl gossip level ad hominems and call it politics. This whole DL Demon Queen rant isn't analysis. It's just projection wrapped in bad improv. She thinks this is edgy, but really it's just lazy moral exhibitionism, cheap slander packaged as progressive comedy. You can practically hear the Pod Save America guys laughing nervously, pretending this is satire when in reality it's just hate disguised as humor. And that's the real story here. This is what the left has turned political discourse into, performative cruelty that masquerades as activism. They can't debate ideas anymore. They were never able to do it, so they have to sexualize their opponents, call them closeted, or make up fantasies about who's secretly doing what on Grindr. It's not about truth. It's about humiliation as a political weapon. Welch isn't just unhinged. She's a perfect product of a culture that rewards emotional outbursts over any sort of logic, gossip over evidence, and public shaming over persuasion. This is what happens when politics becomes therapy for people who never learned how to argue. They just perform outrage. Now look, folks, as difficult as it was to watch all these clips, and trust me, it was incredibly difficult. I don't know if it was for you, but I've been staring at this woman's disfigured face for far too long, okay? At some point, I caught myself just going, please, just be a normal person, not a horse-faced Botox clinic. But here's the truth beneath the humor, okay? It's never been more obvious that there is an entire wing of the Democrat Party being driven, enabled, and amplified by people like Jennifer Welch, the unhinged white liberal woman archetype. And these women, as crazy as they sound, hold an immense amount of cultural and financial power. They shape trends, they influence politics, and they're fully convinced that their bitterness and resentment are moral virtues. So how do you deal with it? You deal with it the way you deal with a girlfriend who has BPD. You stop trying to reason with insanity. Now, I'm not divorcing America because, unlike them, I actually love this country, but engagement clearly isn't working either. Because every time one of these lunatics goes on a hateful tirade, the media and social media rewards them with more exposure, more clicks, more followers. Why? Because we live in an attention economy that thrives on outrage. These women get high off of the chaos. They crave the dopamine hit that comes with moral drama. It's the same reason so many of them are posting I voted selfies after casting their votes for the communist Zoran Mamdani, as if that's cleansing the world of the original sin. They've been conditioned to hate the American order, its faith, its men, its freedom, and they made it their mission to dismantle it from within under the banner of progress. But let me tell you something, folks. That plan fails every time because God's not handing this country over to the bitter and broken. The only real solution now is exclusion. Stop giving these people what they want. Don't argue, don't engage, don't feed their outrage addiction, make them irrelevant. Nothing drives a toxic person crazier than realizing no one's listening to them anymore. Let them scream into the void. Meanwhile, the rest of us will keep building, protecting, and passing on an America that still believes in faith, strength, family, and civil liberties. Because we're not letting a handful of menopausal Marxists destroy the greatest nation on earth. You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.